welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into an extraordinary story, the case of Marise Chiverella. It's a cold case that stretched for nearly, 6 decades?
That's right, almost 60 years.
And it was eventually cracked thanks to some pretty amazing forensic tech and, well, a hero nobody really saw coming. You sent over a whole pile of sources on this one. Our mission now is to kind of unpack the crucial bits, the key insights, so you can get the full picture of this really compelling story quickly.
Yeah, what's remarkable, I think, is seeing how the sheer persistence of the investigators, they just didn't give up. And then you couple that with these incredible leaps in forensic science. That combination is what finally brought answers to a case that, honestly, most people probably thought was lost to time. It's just a powerful example of how old information, old evidence can be looked at, again, with new tools and reveal things hidden for ages.
Exactly. So we're going to follow Marise's last known movements, look into that huge investigation that initially went nowhere, and then get into the amazing journey that finally pointed to her killer. A journey led by, believe it or not, a college kid and the science of genetic genealogy. Okay, let's start at the beginning. This is a heartbreaking story, really. We start with Marise Chiverella, born November 25, 1954 in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. The sources paint this picture of her as a jump rope-loving, organ-playing little girl. Apparently, she wanted to be a nun from a really young age, very devout. She was in the Junior Catholic Daughters of America, and her family described her as like a happy child, but also like a little mother around the house. Quiet, efficient, good grades.
And it helps to understand Hazleton back in '64, right? This was a town built on coal mining. Everybody knew everybody. Kids walked to school. You didn't really lock your doors, maybe. And the Catholic Church was central.
Yeah, a different world.
Marise's family lived in the northwest part of town. Her dad ran a little neighborhood grocery store. So there was this real sense of safety, this tight-knit feeling, which of course makes what happened next even more shocking.
Absolutely. So the day was Wednesday, March 18th, 1964. And the weather was rough, snowy, cold, windy morning. It was also a feast day for one of the nuns at her school, St. Joseph Parochial. Marise was in 3rd grade there.
Okay.
And it was customary, to bring a little treat for the nuns on their feast day. Marise, being the kid she was, decided to bring 2 cans of fruit.
A small act of kindness.
Exactly. And that's why she walked to school alone that morning, which apparently she rarely did.
Why was that?
She was scared of dogs, actually. But she wanted to get there early, before the 8 a.m. Mass, to drop off the fruit. Her house was 533 Alter Street. School was only about half a mile away on North Laurel. She walked it every day with her siblings, Barry and Carmen. Just not usually alone. Okay, this is where it gets, well, deeply unsettling. Marise leaves her house around 8:10 a.m. A schoolmate driving past sees her. Another one sees her a couple blocks later. Her cousin spots her walking on 4th Street.
So people definitely saw her on her way.
Yes, but she never made it to school. Her brother and sister realized she wasn't there at lunchtime.
And in that kind of community, that would have set off alarm bells immediately, wouldn't it?
Instantly.
Especially since she was seen walking. This wasn't like she just didn't show up. She vanished en route. So the alarm goes out. And then just a few hours later, around 1 p.m.
Yeah, 1 p.m.
A man named Arthur F. Robinson, though some sources say Charles Rixofsky, maybe an alias or confusion. Anyway, he was giving his nephew a driving lesson. And they stumble upon Marise's body, found in an abandoned coal stripping ground, like a waste pit area, locally known as a lover's lane, apparently, not far from the Hazleton airport. Her body was down an embankment, maybe 25, 26 feet. Amidst all this trash and debris, it was a known dumping spot.
And the details are just horrific. Her body was reportedly still warm to the touch, so she hadn't been dead long, maybe only hours.
Right, killed that morning.
She'd been raped and strangled. That was the cause of death. She was found fully clothed, except for her shoes. They found those nearby. Her scarf, a multicolored one, had been stuffed in her mouth. And she'd been bound and gagged with her own shoelaces.
So awful.
Her shoes, her little brown pocketbook, her red school bag, they were found a bit further down the embankment. And those 2 cans of fruit, they were right beside her body.
The gift she was taking.
Yeah. She was found clutching a rosary, and her coat had been placed over her face.
Covering her face.
Investigators saw fresh tire tracks in the sort of frozen ground. They tried to make a plaster cast. You can imagine the impact. This discovery just ripped through Hazleton, changed everything. People started locking doors, driving kids everywhere. The sense of safety just evaporated.
Absolutely.
Police jumped on it immediately, massive urgency, questioning everybody. They even held a press conference at 10:30 that same night.
But think about what they were working with in 1964. Forensics were, well, basic compared to now, right?
Related, right.
No DNA testing as we know it, no national computer databases linking crimes or suspects. They had interviews, shoe leather detective work, observation, instinct. That was pretty much it.
And the scale of the investigation was huge, even then.
Oh, yeah. Over 10,000 people questioned eventually. They generated something like 4,700 pages of reports. And meanwhile, Marise's parents, Carmen and Mary, just unimaginable grief. Reports said her mother needed sedation, her father was like a zombie. And tragically, it wasn't even their first major loss. Marise's grandmother, her mom's mom, had been killed in a hit and run just the year before.
Oh, that's terrible. So what theories did the police have early on? One really chilling possibility that they looked into was a link to another case, the 1962 murder of a 9-year-old girl named Carol Ann Doherty down in Bristol, Pennsylvania. That's over 100 miles away.
Okay, what were the parallels?
Both girls were 9, both attacked walking alone, both raped and strangled, and in both cases, clothing was stuffed in their mouths. Plus, in Carol's case, they found pubic hairs clutched in her hand, similar to hairs found in Marise's case.
Wow, those are some striking similarities.
They are, but despite repeated testing over the years, even with newer DNA tech, they could never confirm a link. Carol's case, sadly, is still unsolved.
So that lead dried up. What else did they look at? There were other initial suspects, right? Leads that just fizzled out.
Yeah, quite a few.
There was a man described as having psychological challenges. He claimed he saw something near the pit, but his story kept changing, so they couldn't rely on it.
Right.
Another guy was questioned because he kept this weird scrapbook full of newspaper clippings about murders, including Marise's.
Creepy.
Very. But he had a solid alibi for the time of the murder.
Okay.
Then there was this really suspicious person. Resembled a police sketch, apparently. He was actually scheduled for a polygraph test, but on the day he was supposed to take it, he committed suicide. Carbon monoxide poisoning in his car, never publicly identified.
Oh, that sounds significant, but ultimately led nowhere for the case file.
Seems that way. They also looked at a known serial killer, Chester the shoemaker Conrad, who was apparently in the area around that time, but legally they couldn't hold him or connect him directly.
So many threads.
Yeah, and reports mention a brown coat suspect, a theory about a local coal miner because of where she was found, talk of a stranger in town. But none of it stuck. They all just faded away.
So the years tick by. Decades, really. Tips dry up. Leads go cold. For some of the original investigators, this case became like their career-defining obsession, the most extensive investigation they'd worked. But still no answers.
And Marise's parents passed away, never knowing who killed their daughter.
Just heartbreaking.
It really is. But even as the case went cold, investigators didn't completely give up hope. Corporal Mark Barron, who took over as lead investigator in 2017, he inherited the files, believing it could still be solved.
And they did have one crucial piece of physical evidence, right?
Yes. That sample of semen found on Marise's coat back in 1964. In 2007, forensic science had advanced enough that analysts could finally generate a full DNA profile from that decades-old sample.
Huge breakthrough, even if it didn't lead anywhere immediately.
Right. They regularly uploaded that profile into CODIS, that's the national FBI database, hoping for a match against convicted offenders or other crime scenes, but nothing. Year after year, no hits.
Okay, so this is where things take that really modern, almost unexpected turn. Fast forward to 2019, they upload the killer's DNA profile to a different kind of database, GED Match.
Right. GED Match is a public genealogy site. People upload their own DNA results from companies like Ancestry or 23andMe to find relatives and build family trees.
And even though there wasn't a direct match to the killer?
No, but there was a partial match. It flagged someone in the database as being related to the killer. Distantly related.
Distantly related. How distant?
Distant enough that it indicated Marise and her killer were actually very, very distant cousins, shared ancestors way back.
Wow. Okay, so that's the first real lead in decades, but it's still pretty broad.
Exactly. It told them which family tree to start looking into, but tracing it down to one person, that's a massive task. And this is where that unexpected hero comes in.
Yeah, tell us about Eric Schubert.
Okay, so in 2020, this 18-year-old kid, Eric Schubert, a freshman history major at Elizabethtown College, he just reaches out to the Pennsylvania State Police. Apparently, genealogy was his passion, his hobby, and he offered to help them trace the killer's family tree using that partial match from GED Match for free.
An 18-year-old volunteer. Did they take him seriously?
They did. Apparently, he showed up for an initial meeting at a coffee shop drinking apple juice, the story goes, but with this incredibly professional portfolio outlining how he could help. He blew them away with his knowledge.
That's amazing.
So they brought him on as an independent consultant.
And he just dives in.
Completely. For about a year and a half, he poured maybe 20 hours a week into this, building out family trees from that distant relative identified on GED Match. Over 50 trees, meticulously researched.
Incredible dedication.
But he found it. He traced a common ancestor shared by both Marise and the killer. Turns out it was an Italian immigrant surnamed Forte who came to Hazleton back in 1904.
And this immigrant was the killer's direct ancestor.
The killer's direct grandfather.
Wow. Okay, so Eric's getting closer.
Right. So then he had to painstakingly track down all the male descendants of that specific grandfather who were alive and living in or near Hazleton in 1964.
So how did he narrow it down from there? That must still have been a list of names.
It was. His research pointed towards two specific brothers, both deceased by this time, who fit the criteria descendants of that grandfather living in Hazleton in 64.
Two brothers. How do you figure out which one, if either?
Well, this is where traditional police work meets the genealogy. Investigators needed a DNA sample from one of the brothers' families to compare. They managed to discreetly obtain a DNA sample related to one brother. Reports mention hair from a hairbrush belonging to his wife.
Okay.
They tested that sample against the crime scene DNA, and it ruled that brother out. The DNA didn't match closely enough.
Which left?
Only one possibility from Eric's shortlist, the other brother, James Paul Forte.
James Paul Forte. And this name, had it ever come up before in the investigation?
Never. Not once in 58 years. He was completely off the radar for Marise's murder.
So who was he?
He was born in 1941, graduated Hazleton High in 59, worked as a bartender locally. In the 1960s, he lived at a 118 West 14th Street.
Okay.
And get this, that address is literally right across the street from the cemetery where Marise Chiverella is buried.
Oh my God. Chilling. How old was he in 1964?
He would have been 22 years old when Marise was killed.
And did he have any record? Anything that might suggest?
Not back then, but later, yes. Years after Marise's murder, he did have run-ins with the law. In 1974, he was charged with aggravated assault and sexual assault.
Sexual assault.
Yes, but he pleaded down to just the aggravated assault charge, got only 1 year of probation for it. Then, in 1978, arrested again, reckless endangerment and harassment charges.
But still, his name never got linked to the 1964 murder.
Nope, never connected. And then Forte died relatively young. He had a heart attack in 1980 at age 38, died while working at a bar, apparently.
So Forte is the prime suspect based on the genealogy, but he's deceased. How did they confirm it was him?
This was the final step. The genealogical evidence was incredibly strong, pointing squarely at him. So in early 2022, nearly 58 years after the murder, authorities got court permission to exhume James Paul Forte's body.
Wow.
They took a direct DNA sample from his remains.
And compared it to the sample from Marise's coat.
Exactly. And it was a perfect match, 100% certainty.
Unbelievable, after all that time.
James Paul Forte was Marise's killer. They also confirmed he was her sixth cousin, genealogically speaking, though it's highly unlikely either of them ever knew they were related in any way.
So the case is finally solved. But the killer's been dead for over 40 years.
Right. That's the bittersweet reality. On February 12, 2022, the Pennsylvania State Police held a press conference and officially announced the case was closed, solved. It became the oldest cold case homicide solved using genetic genealogy in Pennsylvania's history.
But no trial, no conviction for Marise's murder.
No, Forte never faced justice in a courtroom for what he did to her.
How did Marise's family react? Her siblings were still alive, right?
Yes, all her siblings were still living and were there at the press conference.
That must have been incredibly emotional.
Absolutely. Her brother, Ronald Chiverella, spoke. He thanked the state police, thanked Eric Schubert profusely. He said something like, "There's an emptiness there that's never going to change, but now that we do know, that helped close that door, which is a blessing."
Closure, even if not conventional justice.
Exactly. And her sister, Carmen Marie, shared that their parents, even through their grief, hadn't wanted revenge. They just wanted justice. And she said they had ultimately forgiven the person who did it, focusing on love and forgiveness instead of hate. Really powerful.
That's incredibly strong.
And there was another sort of postscript revelation, too, after Forte's name and picture became public.
Oh.
A woman named Gina Donahue Connors came forward. She saw his photo in the news. She remembered an incident when she was about 9 or 10 years old. Forte, she said, tried to pressure her to get into his white car.
No way.
Yeah, she got scared and ran into a nearby grocery store to get away from him.
Wow. That just adds another layer, doesn't it? Makes you wonder.
It does. It naturally raises the question, could he have been responsible for other unsolved crimes?
Like the Carol Ann Doherty case.
Mm-hmm.
The one with the similarities back in '62.
That question definitely came up. Corporal Barron mentioned that Forte had actually been released from the Army just about a week before Carol's murder.
The timing is interesting.
It is, but Barron also stated that, as far as their investigation showed, there were no links between the two cases. He emphasized Forte was pretty much a lifetime resident of Hazleton.
So,
But Carol Doherty's sister still holds out hope that maybe genetic genealogy could solve her sister's case, too. And Eric Schubert, the student genealogist, has apparently offered to help her look into it.
well, let's hope something comes of that. So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here for you, the listener? This deep dive into Marise Chiverella's story. It's just such a powerful lesson, isn't it? About never giving up.
Absolutely. Persistence pays off.
And the sheer power of evolving science, forensic science specifically, plus the impact one single person can make, an 18-year-old kid with a passion for genealogy stepping up.
It really demonstrates how these new tools, combined with that kind of dedication, can unlock mysteries that seemed completely unsolvable for decades.
Yeah.
In this case, it really did change the game for cold case units everywhere. I mean, if a nearly 60-year-old case can be solved using preserved evidence and these new techniques, what does that mean for all those other cold cases out there? Cases that felt hopeless.
It offers real hope, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Hope where there was just silence for so long.
So Marise's story, while incredibly tragic, ends up being this symbol, not just of lost innocence, but also of that enduring hope for answers, for truth.
Yeah.
It shows that truth, no matter how long it's buried, really can come to light eventually.
And maybe one final thought to leave you with. As we see just how connected we all are genetically and how accessible these genealogy databases are becoming, it really forces us to think about the flip side, doesn't it? What are the complex questions around privacy, around ethics, around the sheer power of this investigative tool as it becomes even more common?
That's a really important point.
It's got incredible potential for solving crimes, obviously, but it also brings up some significant societal implications we all need to consider as this technology continues to evolve, something to mull over.